The content discussed in this episode is for educational or informative purposes only and should not be replaced by individualized professional consultations or professional medical advice. Hey guys, I'm Tasha.
Hey listeners, this is Goonie.
And you're tuned in to Dr. the podcast, where we chat and explore all things on integrative medicine. Welcome, Dr. Gaya, back to Dr. the podcast. We are super stoked to have you back with us.
It's wonderful to be back. Thank you.
Awesome. So Goonie and I were talking recently about this concept of gratitude. It feels like it's kind of a buzzword these days with, wellness and, holistic living being a trend that you see on social media and, with celebrities and whatnot. And I guess, we're really curious to know if, is this gratitude thing, is it a fad?
Well, I certainly hope not. In fact, many ancient civilizations and religions and others have always centralized gratitude because I think they've instinctively known its power. And in Roman times, it was surfaced also from the Buddhist tradition and many, many traditions. Gratitude is very central to human life and well-being. But it's only in the last few decades, as you know, because neuroscience is developing so fast, we're actually able to find out where gratitude is affected and triggered in the brain, in its structures, in its neurochemicals. But also there's been a lot of research in the last couple of decades about the psychological, physical, and social benefits of gratitude. So I think people are beginning to be aware of it, and it may appear like a fad, but actually it has some historic and scientific facts that really speak to its value and speak to why we should think about it much more.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tricky because sometimes it feels like, it's kind of forced upon us. Like, you should be grateful for what you have. You're privileged or you have all the basic necessities in life. So why are you complaining? These are like the common things people say to you when you, rant or have a off day, right?
Yeah. So you're explaining the benefits of gratitude, right? But there is a very natural aspect of us complaining. And sometimes I wonder, can I really complain? Because I feel to a certain extent that I have a very privileged life. And so is my privileged life less important? Is complaining okay? Basically, that's what I'm asking.
Well, complaining is okay because you have to express what you are feeling and to bottle up any frustration, whether it's guilt or shame or anger. That's not good in the long run for you or people around you. So let's be very clear. When we say we are being grateful, we're not asking people not to complain or express their emotions, right? But really, what are emotions? Emotions are actually neurochemical processes, right? This is what they are. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. You said that you feel guilt. Should, people shame you, right? Guilt you. You have so much, others have so little. But that's not an emotion. That's an action, right? People are trying to rationalize. Right? They're trying to find, okay, how do we relate to all of this? Yeah. So, first, you must express what you feel. Second, it's very, very important that we do not give in to guilt and shame and things like that. And it's really interesting. There are studies that show if you actually practice gratitude, not for everything in your life, but for some things in your life, your brain actually changes. And what it does is it affects the prefrontal cortex, which is where negative emotions like shame, guilt, violence lie. So actually, if you practice gratitude in one part of your life, even these other feelings of guilt and shame and, they will reduce over time. So in fact, they're not mutually exclusive. You can practice gratitude in some parts of your life, and you can very honestly and reasonably say, well, actually, I'm not happy about other things. And also very important to know, your happiness, unhappiness is very subjective, right? It doesn't help you to constantly think, I have food to eat, I live in a good place, I have clothes to wear, I have money. That doesn't actually help you to compare yourself with other people all the time. So whatever you're feeling, you have to be aware, you have to acknowledge, right? But there must be something in your life you're grateful for. And beginning to actually focus on that can, in fact, not only give you direct benefits, but there are indirect benefits that your tendency to feel shame and guilt will actually reduce.
Interesting. As you were explaining this, right? One theme comes to my mind, which is toxic positivity. So I can see the contrast now because you're saying it's not about having to be grateful for every single thing in your life, but to find what it means to you. if you choose to deny your feelings, you're kind of falling into toxic positivity and not being realistic about what's happening around you, right?
Absolutely. I think it's very important to talk about why we should focus on this, right? And the science is very clear. Let's just look at the psychological, because toxic positivity is also psychological. So let's see, if you regularly practice gratitude, even for tiny little things, to having a functioning body, right? Okay, having the food to eat. So somebody's telling you should be ashamed you have food to eat. No, actually having that could be focused into gratitude. Your positive emotions will increase, and your feelings of happiness from inside will increase. You will be much more aware and awake, and you will feel self-satisfaction, again, internally, and you will have enhanced mood. We talked about the difference between emotion and mood. Emotions come and go. Mood is more like the climate and weather. It persists for a longer time. So your general mood will increase. But that's not all. Physically, you will have a stronger immune system, right? You fight off diseases much better. You will have less body pains and aches. You will have an optimal blood pressure, not too high, not too low, and improve cardiac functioning. And you'll have better sleep cycles. But that's not all. It's not finished. There's social benefits too. It gets better and better, right? So you will better communicate. You'll have more empathy and emotional intelligence. You'll have stronger relationships at home and at work and in society at large. You'll be liked much more, and you'll be a much better team player. Right. So this is research. There are lots of different research that come together to paint this picture of the actual psychological, physical, and social benefits. Right. So when the benefits are so much, and they in fact counter our negative emotions and counter the challenges we have, this is really the case for this. And again, it is not an all or nothing equation, right? Humans are complex. We are subjective. Our suffering is very serious for us. You can stub a toe and really be in extreme pain. And it doesn't help for anyone to tell you, oh, well, you have a toe or you have a leg, right? This is not helpful at all. And in a way, if you're a generous person, when you interact with others, you'll stop saying, oh, you should feel lucky. You should yourself not perpetuate the guilt that we impose on people by the way we speak.
That's a really good point, because we tend to also approach things with messaging we've had growing up, right? So then we carry that forward when we see other people, and then don't realize I'm also doing this to other people and forcing them to be grateful for their life. But actually, no, I should give them space and allow for their emotions to kind of express themselves, right?
Suppressing your emotions is really a dangerous thing. Our enculturation, as you said, how we're brought up, what we think is normal. And if we're not aware, we perpetuate suffering in other people. Like, you can see how bad you feel when someone says, oh, you should stop complaining, be grateful, right? But we don't think that we automatically are doing the same thing. So really being self-aware, there's a saying, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. Actually, I think there's something else, is do unto others as they want done to them. Okay, they don't want you to sort of rub their noses in the resources they have either, right? Because everything is subjective.
But is there some science behind where just being always negative or complaining every time, does it have an effect on your body as well?
Yes, on the flip side, absolutely. If you're always negative, your hormones like cortisol go up, your stress goes up, your psychological, physical, and social health are deteriorating. Absolutely. But I think, it's much easier to create something than try to suppress something. And in fact, if you are grateful, practicing gratitude, not just for what you have, but even for yourself, for, others around you, for the general life conditions you have. If you practice it, in fact, the stress hormones like cortisol are suppressed. They actually go down. And when that happens, your cardiovascular function, your body functions, all of this increases. But actually, two other hormones go up, neurochemicals. And these are what we call the feel-good hormones, right? They're dopamine and serotonin. And what they do is they improve your mood, and you become what is known as happy from inside. So things may be happening outside, but you're happy from inside. Have you wondered why some people in very challenging situations are happy? Right? They're happy. And you wonder why, right? Because happiness comes from inside. It is created in the brain by how we think and how we react to external things. But the number one thing with the brain, it is called neuroplasticity. That means by activating a certain pathway. So you're being grateful, you're practicing this every day, even for 2 minutes, you are creating new pathways. The brain is reshaping itself. And that in turn increases the hormones that are released and so on. It's what we call a virtuous cycle, right? If you're constantly trying to suppress your feelings, all this negative stuff, what happens is you're playing with a vicious cycle, and that's very, very dangerous.
So when would you say that it's at point where you don't suppress those emotions, and that fine line between indulging in that emotion versus just going and acknowledging what's happening? And what would be ways for people to say, okay, I've done my complaining, and how to revert back to that place of gratitude? Or what are some of the things that I can physically or practically start doing when I say practice gratitude?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I also do that. Sometimes I have a very bad day. I go to my team or I talk to my family members and say, I'm going to whinge for 2 minutes. Okay. I want you to just listen to me. I just need to express it. But then after that, I'm going to move on, because then I'm telling myself and I have an audience. So that's a little trick. So it's like, you eat only one square of chocolate instead of eating the whole bar, right? So you do need to do it, because suppressing it is very bad. But how we express it, how we deal with it should be healthy, right? Now, instead of focusing on that, so how can we grow gratitude? You can speak about it, or you can do something about it, right? So think, feel, or do. So whatever the outlet, it's a process. So the first thing I would do is we go back to this meditation practice. For 2 minutes, just create a barrier between yourself and everything else that's happening by simply being quiet and paying attention to your breathing. Because when things are swirling around in your head, there's no way you can be grateful. You're just stressed, right? So create that barrier. That's the first. Then I would say you could do in several ways. You could think, feel, or write about what are you grateful for yourself? So if you can do a 1 minute exercise, 2 minute exercise, I'm healthy, I have food to eat, I'm a nice person, I have these skills. It could be anything, I'm grateful that I'm a doctor and I can help people. That's a great thing, It took a lot of suffering, but it's something I'm grateful for. Then I suppose you could ask, well, what am I grateful for other people? What they've done? Your parents who brought you up, your friend, the person who serves you coffee in the coffee shop. You're grateful because he gives it with a smile. It doesn't have to be big things. It can be tiny things. The neurochemistry is the same. Okay, big things, small things. And then I think you can even think about, what am I grateful for in my life? So during COVID, I'm grateful that I had income, that I had access to hospitals, that I've had the vaccine, that I was locked down with my family and not alone. Or it could be the other way around. You're locked down alone. You're grateful for that. It could be So I said, be intentional, and you can just think it, you can write it, or you can speak it to yourself or to others, right? But the important thing is that you keep doing it. It becomes a habit, because when it's a habit, you do it even for a couple of minutes a day. Your brain is rewiring itself. It's producing more and more of those emotions and moods that help you. You won't even notice complaining after a while.
That's true.
Yeah, this is a practice I think I cultivated, especially the start of COVID, because some days you wake up and you feel like you are in this vicious cycle of like negativity, right? And it's so hard to break it. And I read that because I'm kapha, I'm much more prone to being like stagnant for longer periods. So I really like have to make a conscious effort to push myself to, journaling or something. And it actually urged me to start a gratitude jar. But sometimes the word gratitude, I feel, comes with like a stigma or the expectation that you need to be grateful, right? And I find that a bit challenging to grasp. Some days you just feel like crap. And so I shift it and make it like a positive feeling kind of space.
So people do gratitude jars, they keep gratitude journals, they keep lists, or you can even start a meeting. I often have an exercise regularly with my team. I say, so we have 30 people on the screen. Say, can you just pick anybody on this screen and say why you're grateful to them or grateful about them? And you will see the transformation of that group. It's amazing, And again, with practice, you'll see you're actually complaining less. So one thing people really complain about is the weather, right? Constant.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. And then I found a statement that always check, because we're socialized like that. I grew up in the UK, and the English are preoccupied by weather. It's
Right.
always, they talk about weather. In some other countries, it's hello, have you eaten? In
Exactly.
the UK, you say hello and you talk about the weather.
How's the weather?
And then I realized this is really futile, right? I mean, can you control the weather? You can't control the weather.
Right.
So what can you do? So, whenever somebody complains about bad weather, I don't go and say, oh, don't complain, because that's actually not generous. That's
Right.
because that's enculturation. I would say, there is a saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, but only bad clothes. So if you dress out properly, you can always go out,
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. And
That's
if I
super
can't go
cool.
out, if it's raining, I always say, okay, I can write when it's raining. I like to read when it's raining. So you're constantly creating these links in your brain.
Exactly. Yeah. I started journaling because I came across one of Oprah Winfrey's podcasts, and she was saying how she has a gratitude journal. And so
Shout out to Oprah. If she ever listens to this.
and so in the beginning, so she explained as well this gratitude. So it's good to write, so that you start having a list of things that you actually see you have. Sometimes you don't even realize you have, and then you take for granted. And so when you start doing that exercise, as you were saying, Dr. Gaya, which is like creating those connections and actually starting to see on paper, oh wow, there's all these things. And sometimes you amplify a negative, but then you have all those things. And but in the beginning, I have to say that it was weird. I felt that I was like forcing myself, and it looks like an exercise that I have to do. And I didn't feel that the sensation of like, I am very grateful for whatever I was writing. I felt that, oh, I'm grateful for my family, etc. I mean, it sounds like I'm a terrible person, but I was like, I don't feel that gratitude. But as I cultivated that, as I was writing or as I was thinking it or feeling it, I really was starting to have this, I don't know if it's an emotion or just warmth, like in my chest, that just calmed me. And so then you start being even more grateful, and you want to do it even more. And it's a place where you want to go because it feels so nice.
So that's called a virtuous circle. Right. And you were just describing what happens when you practice it. So in the beginning, you didn't have the neural connection. So you have to force yourself. Right. You see, the brain has changed itself. It's created the emotion you're feeling of love and connection. Right. Yeah. So actually, you're just proving what I try to explain about neuroplasticity, that the brain changes itself. What you practice grows and gets used. That's it. Yeah. If you don't practice gratitude, the opposite will happen.
That's exactly why I think I struggled with it at the start, and I thought like, oh, this word gratitude is too heavy for me. So I just shifted my mindset about it and said, okay, positive experiences. What did you feel positive about today? Right. And that really kind of opened the door and like let me cultivate that skill.
I have tough days like everybody else, and some days I think, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through today? And then I really do stop and think, oh, I'm a failure. Then I think, well, actually, if I look at even my children, I haven't done a bad job. I had two human beings into this world who are very decent. So, okay, Gaya, maybe you weren't so good at work today, but you've done something. And I didn't know it was gratitude. And of course, many ancient traditions do this on a constant basis. They try to cultivate gratitude, but gratitude is based on something deeper. It is kindness and compassion to yourself and to others. Because when you look with kindness and compassion, appreciation comes, right? Sure. Empathy is developed. So, it is not just, hold on, this is my 5 minutes of gratitude. No, but connected. And also the question always to ask is, what did I learn today? And then when you keep answering that question, you'll be grateful for the ability to think about what you learned today,
And even you become grateful for the opportunity to be able to learn. Then you see like the gratitude in all its, in all its
all the gaps form, in between that. Yeah. The layers.
We take it very seriously. I must say I'm grateful for my life. No, I can say, thank you, Tasha and Guni, for involving me in this conversation. I genuinely feel nice about it. It could be a thank you. It could be a gesture. It could be, if somebody growing up in your life, somebody was helpful or influential to you, go visit them now that they're old. You don't need to even say thank you. They call that a gratitude visit. Visit a family member, an old friend. Remember the birthday of a friend from primary school. And I think with social media, we can do this. What you're saying is, I appreciate you. I remember you.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I really like your tip on starting meetings with asking that question, because it really shifts the
Energy
the
and
focus, because we're always looking to get, meet a deadline or do something, and it's always future looking, right? And it really makes you stop, pause and think, be in the present moment, and also connect with people.
Absolutely. I used to work for an NGO in Sri Lanka. They work in about 15,000 villages called Sarvodaya. And I had grown up in England. So I was really from a sort of an Anglo-Saxon culture. And I was shocked because they start every meeting, including with the CEO, with a moment of meditation. And they together read out like a verse, like a poem, wishing everybody well, wishing the powers that be, whether it's government or, whoever well, and wishing the whole world that our country is fertile, self-sufficient,
Right.
And then when I left and I joined an international organization, I remember going into meetings and feeling like something's missing here. We're coming in on the attack. As Sasha said, we want to get something and we are going to get it at the cost of anything. And that's why I try to introduce within my team these moments, and of course, everybody was freaked out in the first time.
Yes, I can imagine, because so as I'm starting my journey in entrepreneurship, I think this, Sasha, you don't know, but when we hosted that first team meeting, I was thinking I want to start that team meeting with a meditation, but I didn't, because I was like, oh, it will make me look pretty or something.
Like a stigma, like people might have their own
I was like,
inhibitions.
exactly. And so, but I always wanted to do this. And now that you're telling me that, it's just that first awkwardness and you get over it. And then people just know that this is something that is part of, and they will see the benefits, and they might like indulge in it with me.
So another trick, if the culture of people who are in the meeting is very different from you, you could say, I'm really happy you're here, but I want to really have a meeting where we achieve our purpose. So I'm going to ask everybody just to close their eyes and just think about their intention for this meeting. What you want out of this meeting, very quietly, because even if you don't have to go to meditation, it just at least clarifies in their mind what they want to get out of it, so that they don't just come in and jump into the dynamic and fight for space and voice and so on. So start from where people are, right? And then move towards where you want to be, right? That's also an act of generosity, to acknowledge where people are, and that is fine. Where they are is fine. They don't have to be like you. But then you can work as you grow your team. You can create a culture, and in fact, you will attract people who really like this, and you will retain people who didn't like it, but who have come to really enjoy it. And you'll have the best team in the world.
I love it. I wonder how companies would like transform if this was like a global policy for big organizations. Because I used to work in a professional services firm, and you're always rushing, you're always meeting some deadline or doing 15 things at once. And so if we actually did that in meetings, it'd be like a game changer.
But you need competencies. If you just tell people to do it, it's not going to mean anything. The people are going to be resentful. So I have 8 meetings back to back on an average day, Wow. And before we used to physically move from room to room, and I would use that time, even if it was to the next room, the 3 steps, I'd focus on the steps and breath, and I would set an intention for this before I went in, right? But now, of course, with Zoom meetings, what I do is I get up. Even if I join the meeting, I just excuse myself for a minute, or I join 1 minute early if I can. Just go to the water cooler, get a glass of water, just focus on that. And on the way back, 10, 15 steps, I think, what is my intention? And now I've graduated to not just my physical outcome, I want to get this project going. It's beyond that. What is my intention of how I will behave?
Right.
What is my intention for how others will feel in this meeting, right? So I think, okay, I want to achieve the finalization of the work plan, but I want everyone to feel that they own it and they're empowered to make criticisms. So just by telling yourself, you will find you will facilitate a meeting, or you will participate in a meeting in a different way. That's also a generous and grateful approach. So, you mustn't limit these great qualities just to your journals and lists and, meditation practices. You can do this all day long. Right. Everywhere, anywhere.
And as you're telling this, I also feel that in a meeting, if we all kind of took, 1 or 2 minutes just to reset that intention, and that it will create, I think the outcome of it is a much efficient, short, to the point, and we wouldn't, spend time or waste time with like the noise around it, or the indulge in the other emotions or the energy you brought from the previous meeting. So hopefully we can start doing this.
Based on that, sometimes I come out of a meeting really upset,
Yeah.
So then I go into another meeting. In fact, if it's my team, I do take that minute and say, look, I'm really upset about what happened in my last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I tell you why I'm upset, so I can get it off my chest?
Right.
And then I hear myself calm down, But also practicing that, you're giving other people permission to do that.
Yes, that's a powerful tool.
That's true.
So we've talked about a lot of ways to use gratitude in our day-to-day life. So what would you say are like the 3 main takeaways for people who are foreign to this concept?
There's historical, social, and scientific evidence that gratitude is a very important aspect of human life. It affects your psychological, physical, and social health. Mm-hmm. Gratitude is something to be cultured and nurtured and practiced. And you must do this regularly. And if you do, it will become second nature to you. Mm-hmm. And the third is really don't worry about, all the concepts and the fads out there. Just have confidence in yourself, dive in and start. Start immediately after this podcast. Mm-hmm. Close your eyes, breathe and focus on your breath for a minute. And then just for 1 minute, just think in your head of all the things you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. Little things, big things, old things, opportunities you have. Start. Do it every day.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I hope our listeners have something to work with so that they can start their baby steps into practicing gratitude.
Yeah, and maybe next meeting, I'll introduce that 2 minute setting the intention and gratitude. So thank you, Dr. Gaya.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and select that follow or subscribe button. For now, stay safe and we'll see you next week.